Good morning. Welcome to week 2 of our winter break creative challenge. This week, our goal is to work inside of Spark. So we're going to create a post which encourages people to join us on the winter break creative challenge and lets them know that we are all in on this creative challenge for winter break. So, a couple things we're going to be doing. We're going to be taking the colors from our color palette into Spark and using them for this post. So pick out your favorite color palette and meet me in Spark for some fun creation time. I know I said we would be in Spark today, and we will be. But first I wanted to show you a really cool workaround for that problem we looked at last week. So, last week we picked out all these great colors, but then I told you, oh, and by the way, yeah, you can add these to your libraries, but you can't see the color part of your libraries inside of Spark. I've got a little trick for that. So the key here is if we add it as a graphic into our library, we will be able to access it. So if you're in Illustrator, you can just select that block of swatches, go down to the bottom of your library, hit the plus mark, add it as a graphic. You can do the same thing with an image that you created in Capture, a screenshot. Just add it as a graphic to your library, and then you'll be able to access those colors. Let's go over to Spark and see how that works. So inside of Spark, the first thing you want to think about is the sizing. So our challenge this week is to create a social media post encouraging people to join us on the challenge, letting people know that we're all in on this challenge, and there's several ways to get started. The first is right up here, and you can see we've got some social sizes there. You can also click this plus button and go down to custom size. Within custom size, you can see all of the different social sizes. I'm going to create just a regular Instagram square and hit next. Now, you might be thinking, gosh, Heather, Spark looks a little different. They made some changes. So, if you paid attention last week, we only had a panel on the right side. And if you're familiar with Spark, you know that that panel included the add button, the big plus. What they did was break out that plus into separate components here on the left. So think of it this way. This is where I add content, and this is where I edit that content. So think about it that way as you start building your Spark post. Now, one of the things you can do is select one of these Get Started templates. Any of the ones that you select, you can edit, change the photo, delete, add, whatever you want to do. We're going to start ours from scratch. So I'm going to start by going into my library, and I want us to grab our Winter Break Creative Challenge, and there's that asset that we added. So I'm going to select that and add it to our post. Now we're not going to keep it there. We're basically using this to grab colors. So I'm going to open up my colors, and I'm going to start changing these defaults. So I'm going to select one and just eyedropper across this row until I get all of my colors added in. And so even if you've done this with a photo, you can just come in here and grab all the colors from your swatch. So it's a cool little workaround. Now we've got those colors added. We don't need this anymore. We can go ahead and delete that. Now I want to edit our background. So there's our current color palettes, and I think I want to go with this light green for what we're doing today. So now let's start looking at different things we can add. I'm actually going to think about our visuals before our text. So I'm going to skip the text and move on to photos. So I can load photos that I have or use any of these to find photos. When I search for free photos, these are Creative Commons licensed photos from Unsplash and Pixabay. So if I wanted to find a winter photo, I can search for that. I can add that. Notice I now have the edit options over here on the right-hand side, so I can crop it. I can change the opacity. I have some fun filters I can play with. Enhancements. If you bring in a photo of your own and you're like, gosh, I wish I would have edited the tone, you can really do some great basic corrections right here with these filters. And it's just a matter of selecting the check and then applying whatever change you want. I'm going to go ahead and remove that photo and move on to icons. So with icons, I can search for different topics. Again, Creative Commons. So I'm looking at some tree shapes here, and I kind of like this one, so let's put that one in. I even like the color it pulled. So notice it's pulling colors from our color palette. I'm just going to make that a little bit larger. I like that. And then let's add some snowflakes. So one of the things I want to think about as I'm combining things is how I can have a consistent look. So combining icons with photography can often be off-putting. It will work if you combine your icons as part of like your headline or your text. That looks nice, but I typically look at it as an either or. The other thing I want to look at is, do they kind of look similar? So let's compare a few icons here. So do you see how this icon is a little heavier? It has some weight to it. It's very simple and angled, very much like our tree. This one is kind of lacy, a little flowy. It doesn't really go with our tree. And so one of the things you want to think about is having that consistency. So when you're designing, you want to be able to combine both consistency and contrast in your design. Let's look at how we can use that snowflake to do some contrast. So I like the color, but it's a little matchy-matchy with the tree. I'm just going to change the opacity. So I'm going to bring that down to maybe 60%. And then I'm going to start duplicating this. And as I duplicate it, I'm going to change the sizes. Again, going with contrast. So I want to have a variety of sizes, and I can even rotate these a little so they all kind of have some different movement with them. And the duplication tool over here makes it so easy for me to make those changes. And I can just continue to copy these. Let's go on and explore some more things. So design assets. These kind of give you themes, things that are trending. You can incorporate brushes, different elements, like this banner look. So think of these as kind of a combination of, or something kind of between photos and icons. So let's look at brushes. So one trend that, and this was a few years ago, it's kind of fallen out of favor, was to use these watercolor pops on things. And so you can just add these into things and blend them with things like photos, provide extra texture, and blend them in there. Notice they have the same filters as an image. So I would encourage you to explore those design assets. There's some interesting things in there. Same with backgrounds. So if you like the idea of having maybe a little bit more than just a plain background, you'd like to add some texture to it, there's some really neat textured backgrounds you can bring into here. And when you add that to the background, you can see it provides this kind of paper cut look. So if you like that look, those are some things to explore. These both bokeh and glitter are something that I see in a lot of content as kind of a trend. So those can be added as well. I do kind of like this paper look, but I think that's going to be distracting if we also have text. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off. One of the things you want to remember as you're adding these things is that really less is more. So it's nice to have all these things, but don't try to do them all. Logos. So if you've added a logo, and you can see I have the J School Tech logo in here, I can add those in at this point. I'm going to now add our text though. And so I'm going to say, so there's the text. And I'm going to change the color. I really like the idea of using one of these reds, and I really like that one. And so I can change the font. I do like a sans serif, so I think that one might be nice. And as I'm placing text, I have a couple of options for sizing. If I just expand this, I'm going to get some size changes. I can also type them in or use the drop-down menu. Something to remember is how are you going to align this? So I don't need it to be aligned to any certain objects, but I want to have it kind of angled to something. So here, notice it's not really lining up the snowflake. It's not really lining up with the tree. It looks a little weird. But if I just move it up there and it starts aligning with those snowflakes, it starts looking interesting. If I bring it down and I kind of center it along the tree, that also looks interesting. So it's just a matter of deciding how you want that to look. With our text, we have all kinds of different shapes and things that we can add in here, and it works just like those photos. So we can just click the option we want, add those in there. For this, I'm kind of liking a simple style. Find a new style is a fun button. As you click it, it's going to change. And if you ever don't like, you can just go back. So I'm kind of happy with, oh, I forgot to mention these. So these are different curved and other type of grid alignments that you can make, as well as your line spacing. So you can change those as well. So we've got a good basic design here. Let's look at some of the other things we can do. So we have background. So if we wanted to create more of a grid background or do a border on this, we can do those things. We can always go in and resize this. That's really handy when you use these templates. Sometimes the templates, you'll like one, but maybe it's not in the size that you want. You can always resize things. Our design allows us to brandify things. It brings in variations of these. So this would be kind of like picking a template. And then finally, we have our animation. So I can animate either the images or the text. So here's what the text would look like. Notice it kind of moves it around. And there's a couple of different options on Flickr, so you can pick which one you like best. And then the color shuffle is going to change the colors. And that's kind of interesting. And again, some different options in there. And if you don't like it, you don't have to animate it. Let's talk about how you export these. So when you're finished, you can simply download these. So download it as a JPEG, upload it to your social media, off you go. If you add an animation, it's going to download as an MP4. So MP4s means that it's a playable movie. Some people don't like those on Twitter. They'd rather have a GIF. So you would just need to move it into something like Photoshop and change it from an MP4 to a GIF. So I'm going to go ahead and download this for our week 2 post challenge. Make sure you add yours to our Slack channel. Let me know if you have any questions, and enjoy your creativity today.